By the way, this is the answer to the question in the thumbnail. The skill names of LCE, E.G.O, Lantern, Yisang is Skill 1, so must be prefaced that E.G.O gear are standardized equipment. Skill 2, when juxtaposed with E.G.O gear from L Corp, depending on the degree of attunement to the abnormality. Skill 3, the idiosyncrasies of the source may be utilized with greater flexibility. Defense, yet the degree to which attunement and synchronization are achieved very resultantly allows the user to be devoured. Passive 1, this is reflected in their appearance, more closely resembling the source abnormality and the E.G.O of the former L Corp deal. Support skill, E.G.O disintegration is not unlike decomposition of compost. So in short, he's just explaining that E.G.O gear of the Limbus Company are different from the E.G.O gear of L Corp because they allow you to attune with the abnormalities further, but it also raises a higher risk of you being devoured or consumed by the E.G.O gear, which is shown by how you look more similar to the abnormality than the E.G.O L Corp does. The color fixer's indigo odor is based off the book The Old Man in the Sea, and specifically the character Santiago, who is also known as the Old Man or the Fisherman within the book. In the book, however, he fishes up a giant marlin, which he then goes through a perilous journey in order to drag back onto land. But when within the game Limbus Company, the marlin is instead adapted into the all-imperiling narwhal. This is a reference to the fact that all 5 great calamities of the sea are whales. It has been said before that none of the laws of the lakes applies to the great calamities, the current 4 or the past previous 5, or the current 3 if you consider the end of the canto. This could be interpreted in multiple ways. One would be that the calamities are so big that none of the waves could affect them in any way, though breaking any of the laws would not reasonably cause any damage to them. Another interpretation is that the laws only actually apply to human vessels. For example, instead of applying to a piece of driftwood, they would only apply to a book with humans on it. But my interpretation on this is since the pound whale is stated to come from the outskirts, it could be possible that all 5 great calamities come from the outskirts, thus it will make sense that the laws do not apply to them, as this is not the area that they inhabit. The House of Spiders in Middle Earth Falls are noticed as a bit of flavor text within her skill passive descriptions. It says, buried in the deepest reaches of the city are the ruins. Dive past a certain depth and you are no longer in the city. This is a shard of a sword once wielded by one of the Endwatchers who inhabited the ruins, awaiting the coming apocalypse. Only a fragment, but within it their immense power lies slumbering, untouched, unmarred. I don't think we have enough context to even fully understand what the statement means, but it introduces a lot of new concepts such as the Endwatchers or the coming apocalypse, and how their power has somehow been fractured into shards, and how every single one of their shards could be considered one of the top-grade relics of the city. Something interesting is that a lot of people believe that the ruins exist solely outside of the city. But within this, it says that buried in the deepest reaches of the cities are the ruins, so it could be assumed that the ruins are actually hidden underneath the city rather than outside, considering how in Ruina there was said to have been a war when people somehow overtakes the city from its previous owners. I believe that the previous owners were stated to be machines of a certain kind, and that the humans in the head somehow were able to take control of the city and inhabit it. From this, it might be possible to assume that the Endwatchers are actually some kind of advanced machine, and that these are their fragments because it's their fragments of their metal pieces, or their power cores, or anything mechanical of the sort. So next, Nurse Father Rien begins the first phase using the version Furioso replica. This is a reference to the hit game by Project Moon, Library Ruina. In the second phase, he would instead use the skill Furioso Crescendo, which has a different skill icon with more accentuated blue highlights. This may also be a reference to the same game, featuring the character Argalia. Once he is about to be defeated, he will cease to lose HP in the end turn, after which he would use the skill Furioso Lacusa Crescendo, which loses clash power upon being clashed with Ryoshu's base E.G.O, or Sword of the Flames. After Ryoshu wins this clash, the cutscene that will end the encounter plays. Dante's Clockhead's ability to ride people has been compared to Singularity multiple times. I believe that the most important time this comparison is made is by Herbert, the director of T-Corp, since he says that he had once gone into the outskirts and wished for a star, which was mated to T-Corp Singularity, allowing him to control time. I believe that his judgment on the nature of Singularity means that Dante's head likely does actually contain powers similar to Singularity. Considering the Limbus Company's seeming will to start a War of the Wings, it may be possible that they wish to reinstate themselves in the position of L Corp, using Dante's head or something that powers Dante's head as a singularity of their corporation. Singularities have also been compared to stars many times within the game, such as within Canto 4, where it is stated that the K-Corp singularity, the terrible thing, has been gained by going to the outskirts and wishing upon the star, and in the prologues, the Lion, the Wolf, and Panther ask Dante for the location of the star, implying that Dante knows this. But the actual question here is where Dante has stored the star. Dante in the prologue has stated that they are going to take the location of the star to the grave with them, meaning that the star likely has a large amount of importance. And within the prologue, Dante is already wearing the uniform for the Limbus Company bus division, with the Sinner number 10 being marked on their suits. It may be possible that Dante was once working with the director of the Limbus Company, E.G.O, in order to be the one to procure a star for their company, but this still does not clarify the location of the star. It could be possible that the star is literally stored within the clock head, since Faust has also said that the detonation effect of the head is able to incinerate stars of the city. She says that it is because it uses incinerated golden bow branches within their head, but it might be possible that the actual star's singularity is hidden within there too. So this incineration is needed to incinerate both the golden bow and the star, but it may be possible that the star is in a more vague location, such as the phantoms of E.G.O of Dante, since it is stated that the star is seen by simply looking up. At the end of Canto 4, which was about Yi-Song, Damian appears to ask Dante a few questions and to explain some vague ideas. One of the first ideas that he mentions is how the idea of extracting identities from mirrors may constitute stealing from him. Then he asks Dante to draw a sheep for him and imply that they used to know each other, saying, "You may not remember it right now, but you promised to." First, the idea of identities being stolen from him could be interpreted in many ways. One assumption is that he might be some sort of multi-dimensional entity, and that extracting identities from the mirror will be directly extracting from his presence. This will lend credence to the idea that he may stand against N-Corp, since N-Corp wishes to destroy all other mirror worlds. Another interpretation is this is the more metaphorical idea that extracted identities from mirrors is for a person to steal from themselves, steal from one of their many possible possibilities and simply manifest them into real life. But the statement, "Draw me a sheep," is a reference to the book The Little Prince, in which Little Prince asks the narrator to draw them a sheep. After the narrator draws them many versions of sheep, all of which the Little Prince decides are not good enough, the narrator instead draws him a crate and says that the sheep exists within the crate. I believe that this will make more sense regarding the more metaphorical interpretation of the idea of stealing, since all of the different drawings of sheep could be interpreted as different identities within the mirror world, and how each and every single one of them are not perfect, and therefore to forcefully extract them and turn them into images will be stealing. But then the act of drawing them a crate and saying that a sheep is within it might constitute something like to choose not to use the mirror technology and accept your own fate, or to utilize the mirror technology differently, to simply acknowledge the existence of other dimensions and not seek to either destroy them or extract from them. Another way to think of this is that to draw them a crate would be the current journey that Dante is going on, that their journey was the bus department experiencing all of the experiences. Though utilizing identities within all of them, these experiences allow the sinners to shape their own identities into different from those in the mirror world. Thus, you can interpret the bus itself as a crate, since the engine within Mephistopheles allows you to draw identities from other mirror worlds, so the bus itself could be the crate, since it could contain any amount of sheep, as any amount of identities could be extracted from the mirror world. The crate that was drawn is unopened, so this may constitute something like destroying Mephistopheles, or to utilize the extraction engine differently to cease extracting identities, or to extract all of infinite possibility but simply allow it to remain within the engine. To be honest, I kind of just wanted to ramp out Limbus Company stuff, so I just decided to make this video. I haven't made this kind of compilation type video in a long time, so I hope it does well, and whatever, like and subscribe and use the hype feature and donate all of your life savings to this account, and I don't know, tell your mother about this.